Apple finally took a hot iron and a box of crayons to iOS 7, but how does it look in an in-hand device? Well, we'll talk about that. Samsung's latest blast of products, we'll also talk about those, and a few rumors out of the Windows Phone camp, plus listener mail on episode 048 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow where we discuss smartphones, tablets, and the state of mobile technology in 2013. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, editorial director at Pocketnow. Today, I'm joined, briefly at least, by editorial-in-chief and grandmaster of gradients, Brandon Miniman. Good morning to you.
Father, do I make you proud?
You always make me proud, son. And senior editor and Mega Man, Taylor Martin. Good morning to you.
Mega Man, what is up? What is up?
I'd like to ask Taylor a question.
What?
Taylor's reviewing the Galaxy Mega 6.3, and it's a loaner from Negri Electronics, and usually we would send it back after a week. But Taylor actually might want to buy it for personal use, and I just want to know why.
That is crazy talk. I do want to know why, too.
Yeah, it's a little laggy, just like every other phone running TouchWiz. But the Snapdragon 400 is what most people don't like about it, and it's really not that bad. The 400 is... It actually is faster than the Note 2 in about everything it does, so it's kind of crazy, but it's actually fast, relatively. It's not going to, be faster than the one, which I have a comparison, making that right now.
Are you doing a Mega versus HTC One?
I am. I'm editing it, or I was editing it before you called me.
Nice.
Yeah, yesterday was a wash, though. It was supposed to go up yesterday, and it was not happening. Because as some people on Twitter heard me rant, it's kind of noisy here.
Okay, so yeah. Speaking
Mega.
Speaking of noise, I'm sorry, I do want to get this out before I get any more transients here. I have some men working on the outside of my building, and it is happening literally right outside my window. And it's awesome. I'm not irritated, but I'm going to be making liberal use of the mute key because I also have the door open to the sound booth, and I have that open because I'm listening for the buzzer because the UPS man is coming with a physical QWERTY device for me. And I think,
nice.
Taylor, you're getting one of those today, too, aren't you?
Is it today?
I think, I
never got shipping.
They were sending it out. They were sending it out pretty much immediately. So, yeah, I think Taylor Martin and I both are getting our BlackBerry Q10s in today. So watch for unboxing, at least one unboxing today.
You guys, your email responsiveness is going to go through the roof.
I know. Our productivity is just going to skyrocket. Now,
but Mega.
Yeah, Mega.
I thought Tony was crazy when he said the phone pad is awesome, and I still kind of do, no offense to Tony, but the phone pad is not going to fit in my pocket. It's about the same size as the Nexus 7 that does not fit in my pocket. This is the upper limit of what my pocket can hold, and yes, it's two-handed, but I've gotten used to that with the Note. I can use the Note one-handed, but it's more comfortable to use two-handed, and the Mega is a two-handed device, and I don't mind that. It's huge, and I love it. And one of the main reasons is because its screen is large enough to actually have a larger or a lower DPI, which means you get more information on the screen. So in the browser, you get maybe 30 or 40% more of that physical page versus, just being able to see.
Yeah.
It's bigger. It's not bigger. It's more information on the screen.
Formerly, something you had to resort to like a custom ROM to do on the Droid DNA or something like that. Yeah.
Right. You can root and change your DPI, but the problem is that you're making it smaller on a smaller screen. And then if you don't have great vision, but I do, but everything just gets super small on a smaller screen. On this, it's big enough to have a lower DPI. So you get tablet applications, well, not quite, but close to. Like Google Now for most phones is full screen. Like all your cards are pretty close to full screen. On this, they're smaller. They take up maybe there's like a half-inch margin on each side of the card.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What is the PPI, Taylor?
The pixels per inch, 233. It's low. It's low.
That's still pretty. That's actually a little higher than I expected. I've been working with tablets the last couple of days, though, and in the high ones. So.
If you use the Note 2 and you're okay with it, the screen really isn't that much worse. It's a little more fuzzy, but it's not terrible. And for me to be a pixel junkie and say it's okay, it's kind of crazy.
I was going to say, you got to send it to Brandon so he can immediately give it the thumbs down.
Yeah, but I mean, I've been carrying the iPad mini, and this would completely negate the need for an iPad mini.
Yeah.
Because it's so big.
I'm just envisioning that. So one of the things we noticed is that the DPI was less than 500, which we really don't like. I want to talk to Brandon about resolution.
So Taylor, I just want to kind of understand your usage of the.
So
why? Or what?
I want to make a note. Brandon only does have a half hour to be on the podcast, and I really want to talk about iOS. So, but I know you want to talk Mega, so go ahead.
Yeah. So, am I right to assume, Taylor, that you are using your tablet a lot less because this is just such a bigger screen experience?
Yeah, I used to carry the iPad mini and use it all the time, and I haven't used it since the Mega came in. I haven't touched it. So, it's just. It really just, it is a phablet. After you use this and you go back to the Note 2, the Note 2 feels like a normal phone again. Like a DNA or a HTC One. It just feels small.
It's similar to after a couple of days using the Note 2, going back to the S3, for me, felt like going to a miniature phone.
Yeah, it feels like you're just like, oh my gosh. But the funny thing is, I'm using two phones at once. I'm using the iPhone 5 in one pocket, or one hand, and the Mega in the other. So I'm using like the two extremes. So yeah, it's like the Mega is my tablet now, and the iPhone is my phone. It's kind of crazy, but I love the Mega. As far as this has gone so far, the honeymoon period is over, and I still really like it.
Has anyone said to you, what the hell is the matter with you? Why is your phone so large?
Yes, but the funny thing is, the crazy thing, I was sitting in a coffee shop yesterday, and I had several people ask me about it. One guy was like, that is ridiculous. He's an iPhone user, avid Apple fan. And he's like, that's stupid. Why would you ever want something that big? It doesn't even fit in my pocket. He wears skinny jeans, and it doesn't fit in his pockets. But there were two older gentlemen that I talk to regularly. One, he doesn't really like Android that much. He had an Evo, the original Evo, and he went back to a BlackBerry. And I showed him the Mega, and he's like, wow, that is awesome. I want it. I want it now. I showed him the Note 2 a few months back, and he's like, I don't care. The Mega, he's like, I want that. Who sells it? I want it right now. I'm just like, wow.
What are we talking here?
What?
How old are we talking here?
He is, I would say, late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, see, that's the same exact thing that happened when I was taking my dad phone shopping, and we came across the Note series on the shelf. He sees the Note 2, and he's like, wow, what's this? Now this I could get behind. You know, because, like, he's not an invalid or anything, but his eyesight is not as good. And he's like, yeah, well, I can see what I'm doing on this.
Yeah, well, this guy, what his reason is, he's a travel writer, and he's a photographer. And he shows off a lot of pictures to clients and all sorts of things. And he said, I carry around a 10-inch tablet to show off my pictures because it just doesn't make sense to show it off on a phone because it's too small. That's why I went back to a BlackBerry and got a tablet. And he's like, that thing is big enough to where I could show off pictures and not have to carry a second device. Like it's that perfect balance between the two. And the other guy, he saw the Note 2 and instantly fell in love a few months ago. He's like, man, what is that? I want it right now. I need it. And he went and he wanted to trade in his iPhone and get a Note 2. And I showed him the Mega yesterday, and he was just blown away. Like, he's like, I need this. Forget the Note. I want this. So it's interesting because I've actually had about a balance. Like, my friend, she just got an S4, and she's like, I like that Mega. That's awesome. I mean, most people.
So, the lone differentiator on this device is size. That is it.
Yeah.
It's just bigger, and it doesn't even have an S Pen. Like it's not. See, for me, I every time I go back to my Note 2, I don't really necessarily fall in love with the size of the screen. I re-fall in love with the S Pen and the enhanced feature set around that. So the Mega would just drive me nuts.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm definitely going to harp on in the review is why.
What's that?
Should have had an S Pen.
Yeah.
Yeah, why did Samsung need to create an entirely new brand? Because the Note brand also has much larger devices. If the Note brand was only for this one size phone, no bigger than, say, 5.5 inches, okay, I would understand. But there's a Note 8, a Note 10.1. Why would you create an entirely different brand? Yeah. And I understand that they're not building up on the specs. It's got smaller, like, I guess... less impressive specifications.
Yeah, I think
but you also
the
got
speculation
Galaxy.
is that they want to bring that big-sized Android devices to a market, the segment that is not as willing to spend as much money. Because the Mega is cheaper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what doesn't make sense is why do they have the Galaxy S4 Mini? Why do they have the Galaxy S4 Active? All these other Galaxy S4s that really aren't a Galaxy S4, but they have the same branding. And they have,
I see what you mean, yeah.
They have less impressive specifications than the S4, but they also have the same branding.
Yeah, it's really quite a schizophrenic approach to marketing, isn't it? Yeah.
This phone would be better with an S Pen, and it would be better and probably be more marketable with the Note brand. But
Agreed.
that's just me. I don't know why they would need to create an entirely different brand. So,
well, that's not the only new Samsung brand that we're seeing, and we're actually going to get to some of that in Android. I do want to take advantage of the time that Brandon is here. Can we talk iOS real quick?
Let's talk iOS.
All right, good.
Certainly.
I do want to get two more announcements out of the way before we do. Adam Dowd's review of the Touchpad Go, the WebOS tablet that couldn't or that didn't, is out.
Get all that.
Yeah, go check that out. It's also Adam Dowd's first video, so that's awesome. It was really great to see Adam Dowd jokes in video form and not text form, so that was fun. And also the season finale of the Pocketnow Live, our Hangout series, our primary Hangout series, is coming up tomorrow. Both of you gentlemen going to be on it or what?
Hell yes.
Yeah, Brandon's going to be there. Taylor?
I haven't been contacted, so I don't know.
Oh.
So I'm guessing that's a no.
You've been dropped. Your character's been killed off.
No has invite.
No has invite. I has a sad, though.
Oh, you has a sad. I'm sorry. Well, the Taylor Martin character has fallen down an elevator shaft, so he won't be appearing on the season finale, but maybe he'll come back next season as a ghost.
I'm already a ghost.
The Pocketnow Live. Oh, you are. Oh, Casper. Oh. The Pocketnow Live will be taking a hiatus. It is not a cancellation by any means. It's just a hiatus. And yes, everyone asking on YouTube, the Pocketnow Daily is still a thing, but Jaime Rivera has been on vacation. So when he comes back, the Pocketnow Daily will also return. So, all that being said, what?
He's been very great and very quick at annotating videos and everything, though.
Even though he's been on vacation. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, I upload and then boom, it's annotated. I'm like, wow, that guy is crazy.
Jaime Rivera also now has my BlackBerry Z10. I just sent it to him the other day.
Nice.
Oh
also, Segway Killer.
Yeah, what is it, Segway Demolisher? Boom.
Boom. Okay, go.
Oh, okay. No, also. Good. We only have a few more minutes with Brandon. I want to hear about iOS 7. Brandon, you've given us a walkthrough of the new software on the iPhone. Taylor, I believe you are running a beta of iOS 7 as well?
I am as well, yes.
Okay, so I just kind of want to sit back and let you guys tell me about your impressions of this new software overall after a period of using, of course, albeit the beta, for a couple days now. And I want Brandon to go first.
Yeah, so I've been trying to figure out how to think about this because it's not a big change, and yet it is. And what I've concluded is that Microsoft and Google are trying to change the way that we use our phones. Google through Google Now and Microsoft through Live Tiles by bringing information to you before you need it, before you know you need it. And Apple isn't doing any of that. It's still a very hunt and peck, I don't know if that's the right term, kind of operating system where it's just completely app-based. And the redesign is extremely thorough. It touches every last little tiny part of the operating system. And the design is modern. It seems that flat has become modern, although in 3 years from now, we'll all be wearing bell-bottoms again, and we'll be doing skeuomorphisms. Skeuomorphisms will be modern once again. So this is a very trendy design to keep up with sort of the way that Windows Phone is looking and that Windows is looking and all of these other flat designs. But it's a really good redesign. And Apple has introduced something I think that's entirely new that we haven't seen before on any other mobile operating system. And they use it everywhere. And it's so subtle, but it's so beautiful, which is this like frosted glass, this Gaussian blur. My favorite example of it is actually in the text messaging application, which I think is just a perfect example of good design. And like, you get these blue bubbles if they're iMessages, and if you scroll up or you scroll down, the UI elements are just slightly, they're like frosted pieces of glass. And it's just the slightest bit. You can't see through it. You can't read the contents, but it's enough to where the glass or whatever becomes slightly tinted as you slide on by.
So it's as though you're texting on your shower door or something.
Yeah, but it's a lot. It's a lot
like
more
a bokeh, like a defocusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot nicer than that. But the effect is that the UI elements take on sort of the content design.
Yes.
And another example of this is in the dialer. I don't know if you've seen this, Taylor, but in the dialer, when you press on a digit, you see through to the wallpaper that you've set.
I haven't noticed because I have a solid color wallpaper.
So, like the dialer, the dialer has those circular buttons, right? And you're saying when you press on the buttons, like they become transparent and reveal your wallpaper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So Apple.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say Apple tried to sort of define iOS 7 in like layers. Like there's your wallpaper followed by your icons, followed by stuff that floats on top. And I get that. The thing about it is that it still feels the same to me. It's more pleasant to use. I think I got that delight that I was looking for that was missing in iOS, but it's still the same old thing. And for me, that means that I'm going to use iOS 7. If they come out with cool hardware, I'll probably use it. But I'm probably going to be back on Android a lot sooner than I was with other versions of iOS, because it's just there's nothing really new here. And the newness of the glass stuff and the nicer font is going to wear off really fast.
Yeah, that's actually about what I was going to say. It's new, it looks great, and it's exactly what Apple needed to kind of bump that buzz up again, turn it up a little bit, and to get people excited. The one thing I don't like is how colorful the UI is. I like bright colors. I explained this after the announcement. I really like bright colors. I mean, if you look at half of my home screen setups, most of them have really, really vibrant colors, but these are like almost pastel.
And in some cases, they're fluorescent and neon, like the dialer. I mean, not the dialer, the phone and the messaging app.
Yeah.
So is it like you broke open a highlighter and like spilled it on parts of the UI? Is it that kind of color quality?
It is,
Yeah.
but the weirdest thing, and by the way, you really see this when you're like outdoor and the automatic screen brightness goes to 100%. The weird thing is I had no idea that a smartphone display could display near neon colors. And it's a little bit ballsy for Apple because it kind of hurts my eyes, but it's something that you don't see on any other device, because I think other companies are like, no one's going to like this.
Yeah.
But Apple's like, we're going to be ballsy enough to do it.
So that puts me in mind of like one of my favorite tweets I saw about in this whole discussion, because like the day following the iOS announcement, 7 announcement, everybody was talking about this, and they still are to a degree, and of course we're talking about it a lot. But somebody was like, I forgot who it was, but somebody said the fact that iOS 7's visual design is polarizing is a really good sign that Apple's doing the right thing. And it's true, because, I mean, only bold moves generate responses that are this, black and white. I mean, some people really hate iOS 7, and some people adore it, and very few people are kind of like, meh, whatever. I think that's great.
I think it is bold, and it had to be. And a couple of other UI examples that at first I didn't know how I felt about. The signal bars, for the first time on literally any phone I've ever used in my life, are now these little dots. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why would they change something that people are so familiar with? And I don't have a really good answer, except that by putting those dots up there, Apple has made it so that if your friend has an iPhone and they're in a third-party app like Facebook, and therefore the UI is Facebook's, you can still tell if they've got the latest and greatest Apple software just by glancing up at their dots up there. So it's kind of like this identifier that helps people say, "Yeah, I've got the new thing."
Oh, well, that's true, because it's always present. Yeah.
I think it ties back to the commercial. Or the little ad they ran at the beginning of the keynote that I didn't get to see.
With all the dots tumbling everywhere and reforming and splitting apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's symbolic, I guess. I don't know.
Now, I wish that design element kind of bled into more parts of the OS, because we started the event with that dots commercial, and wow, it looks like somebody's dropping beads of oil on a moist towel and they're all flying everywhere and whatever. Or it's like, atoms congealing and doing their thing. But aside from the signal graph, that's not really present in any other part of the OS. I mean, we got the round dialer buttons maybe, but I don't know.
Well, you're right. It's only in the dialer, and actually, if you go into the favorites tab in the dialer, you get a little picture now next to your favorite people, and there's circles, and it's so weird because it just seems out of place because there aren't circles anywhere else throughout the operating system.
Yeah.
Just a few other comments while I'm chatting my head off here. I cannot stand these icons, the Safari icon and the settings icon.
Okay, so every icon has been redesigned, right?
Every icon has been redesigned. Some of them are totally inconsistent. Some of them literally look like they were made in 1982. They're just
they're kind of schizophrenic again. If you look at Game Center, it's 3D. The bubbles have kind of that arrow view to them. They're 3D and glossy. Yep. But if you go to the Photos icon, it's flat and has the same color pattern.
Did you go into Game Center yet, Taylor?
I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I don't use Game Center.
It is so weird and silly. It's just these 3D floating bubbles. I don't understand. Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of inconsistency here. Some of the icons are literally totally flat. Some still have a little bit of a shine on the top. Taylor, what do you think about the background shifting as you move the phone?
Like I said, I have a flat background. It's just a plain gray, and I did that because it was kind of useless, and it looked cool for a few minutes, and it wows some people when you show them, and that's about it. I do have it on the lock screen. I have the live little animated wallpaper on the lock screen, and it's cool. But that's another thing. I don't like the new lock screen. It looks nice.
What does it look like? It's just got a swipe up arrow on the bottom, slide up to unlock.
No, slide up reveals the
control
quick controls, and sliding down reveals Notification Center, or not quick controls. What is it? Control Center.
Control Center, yeah.
Yeah. And then you have your clock and the date. And your notifications slide to the left. And that's the problem. Notifications appear in the middle, and before you had a designated button. When you touched, it would show a button, and you would swipe, and you would know you were opening to that. On this, there's no really way to tell if you're swiping to unlock or swiping to unlock using one of the notifications until you're already too late, unless you do it really slowly.
So there's a usability shift there that's annoying.
Yeah, it's just there's the UI is so simple. There's no indication of whether you're really opening it until you see that the whole thing is moving.
All right.
The problem is there's no visual cue to tell where you should touch. You have to touch on the edge of the screen, and I don't know. It's just it's different. It's different, and
so
the problem is notifications. They're so big. You only see 3 at a time. So when I've left my phone on, do not disturb for 2 hours, there are literally 50 notifications there, and you just have to scroll and scroll and scroll. Before it was much more condensed. These are really, really large notifications.
So I've got a question. While we're talking about notifications and the lock screen and stuff like that, we've seen this kind of predictable thing emerge where some folks who have an eye for design or don't have whipped up a bunch of renders showing the iPhone and then a Windows phone next to it, and then finally showing iOS 7 on an iPhone. And the implication, of course, is that Apple stole a bunch of design cues from Metro/Modern. So
I've got to show you one.
I'm curious. I mean, what is? Do you see that? I see it to a degree. I think everyone steals from each other, and it doesn't really bother me all that much. But do you guys think that that's warranted? I mean, Brandon, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I see Android and Windows Phone throughout the entire operating system, and I don't really have a problem with it. I think it's just the way. I mean, it's kind of like, would you, if you were building a new house and everyone, the trend was for a brick house, you'd build a brick house because that's.
She's a brick house. Thanks.
I see it everywhere. I've got to jump off shortly, but I want to actually have a little closing thought here.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing an interesting change in Apple. Apple used to be, this is what I've been thinking about, as I look at iOS 7 and I say to myself, there's nothing here that's revolutionary, nothing to wow anybody. I think Apple used to be a two-man show when Steve Jobs was alive. Steve Jobs was the visionary of software. He also knew hardware quite a bit, but Johnny Ive was really the hardware guy. And so when Steve died, the vision behind the software kind of got slowed down a lot, so they put Johnny Ive. And the best thing Johnny could do is come up with good...
Is it Joni? I'm sorry. Is it Joni or Johnny?
Johnny.
It's Johnny, but I say Joni because it's...
Because of the one N? Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was just curious.
And so I think we're going to see a future of Apple where they're going to be more until they find someone like Steve Jobs that can anticipate the world's technological needs before anyone can think of it. I think Apple's going to be a company that's going to focus on hardware, and they're going to be a few beats behind in software all the time, but their hardware is going to be industry leading generation after generation, and that's going to I think that's going to slow the company down. I think that's going to depress the stock price because you get the press talking about this stuff and saying that iOS is not revolutionary, Windows Phone and Android are better, but they're going to rely on the hardware to sell product.
And how do you think that's going to go for them? I mean, yeah, sure, the stock price may not see its old heights for a while, but I mean, people are still going to keep buying iPhones by the truckloads.
I mean, especially if the hardware is really amazing. I mean, we've got the next iPhone coming out in just a few months, or it's going to be announced. I mean, what's going to happen eventually is if they get too far behind in the software, and Google and Microsoft are way ahead, there's going to become this terrible disparity between what you can do on an Android and what you can't do on an iPhone. And right now, it's not that much. Google now, you don't get the same integration, and there's other things.
Cue Taylor Martin talking about sharing.
Hey,
they're sharing, but like most people don't care about sharing and about Google now. But in the future, when Android can like cook your dinner and iOS is still, Siri learned one new thing. Who gives a?
when home appliances are integrating with Android and not with iOS, because that's the next big push. That's what LG is trying to do. That's what other companies are trying to do. They're fitting refrigerators and all sorts of things with wireless technology that you can see what's inside your refrigerator while you're at the grocery store. You can start your oven, you can preheat your oven while you're on your way home. All these new things that Android is capable of doing because it's open. iOS is going to have to change at least something about being so closed.
I mean, I don't know if that's the best example because I've got a bunch of home automation stuff like lighting and climate control, and it works just fine on iOS. It doesn't work. I mean, it works. It works.
I mean, like Nest. Nest works fine, but
they had to work with Apple to implement that, right? I mean, that's the what you're driving at, Taylor?
Yeah. Apple is so controlling over what can be done with the platform that they're holding it back. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Right, and this is that philosophical argument you can have over and over, and the response is that and look at where they are. They're like near the top as far as smartphones in the world. But then again, you're like, well, so is that's a solid counterpoint. I was going to say so is Android, but you have a better point.
Yeah, so is Symbian, so is BlackBerry. Mm-hmm. So
was Palm at one point.
Yes.
So yeah, Taylor. I mean, Brandon. I think those are excellent thoughts, and I'm glad we got to get your firsthand impressions on this. I mean, obviously, we can ask Taylor anytime, but your time is limited today, so we wanted to get your voice on the show. So thank you.
Yeah, glad I could talk about iOS because I've been waiting for something to change, and now it's sort of here. Anyway, so guys, be good, and
we'll do. We will behave.
Make your mother proud.
I'll continue to crush segues like I was born to.
Yep. Make sure you do that, Taylor.
Crush those segues, and Michael, you make funny sounds, and
I will keep doing it. I'll keep singing old 70s songs as well.
While I sing show tunes.
No, there will be none of that.
What about the ink spots? I don't want. Yeah.
All right, Brandon. I think that's your cue.
I was going to do a drum beat on the way out.
That's going to do it for this episode. Oh, no, that's the wrong transition. Okay. We're going to start talking about Android.
And I'm out. Peace.
Later, man. All right.
Before we get off the topic of iOS 7, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please do.
My favorite application on iOS that I've recently downloaded is called Boxer. It's an email client that recently came out, and it's meant to help you sift through all your email quickly. Just swipe, kind of like Mailbox.
All right.
And it's broken in iOS 7, so I downloaded it 2 days before the announcement. And I've been using it, and I got very used to it, and I liked it and loved it. And now I've got nothing like it on Android. and it's broken on iOS 7. And that's the bad thing about downloading and installing a beta.
Yep.
Is there are so many broken things. So it's definitely still a beta. It's very much a beta. When you unlock, the clock kind of overlaps itself. There are two instances of the status bar, and you'll see two clocks, two battery meters, two everything for just a split second. And it's very rough around the edges, but that gets me to my next point. It is rough around the edges. It's not a final version, and we may see more features. We may see even new interface elements and new things by fall, because that's how iOS 6 was. They announced it at WWDC, and by fall, it had new features. So just wanted to throw that out there before we move along.
That's good. You know, that's you're making a good point there, and it also gave me time to do something unrelated. So thank you.
You're welcome.
We already talked the Mega to death. You compared it to the Note 2, and we already kind of covered that at the top of the show. So I don't want to talk about the Mega, but if we can jump into Android, I want to point out that we are a stupid, fickle, dumb industry, because I'm mining. You know what I'm going to talk about? I'm mining the Pocketnow front page for stories for the podcast. I think I was doing it this morning, and I'm like, all right, what's going on in Android? Blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? Early Galaxy S5 rumors.
Yes.
Look to an all-metal design. I feel like I did when we did that show about the Nexus 5. Like 6 months ago, and I'm like, come on. But I'm going to put it in the title. Listeners, you already know this because you've already downloaded it. But I'm putting it in the title because, hey, more ears. But but also because we do have to talk about it briefly, because I was just thinking about this yesterday, and I don't remember exactly the terms under which this came about. But I was like, Samsung has got to. Oh, no, I do remember. Okay. So remember how I was talking about the Note 2 earlier in the show?
Yep.
I was at rehearsal last night for the show I'm doing in Boston, and I was taking some notes on my Note 2, and I was like, God, I really love this thing. I should use this more often. And then I was thinking, God, if only I liked the design more, if only the design was a little more awesome. And then I started thinking about the Note 3, which there are rumors galore about that. But I was like, man, what if that comes out with a really amazing design? And then what if the S5, at some point Samsung's got to abandon their love affair, as Stephen Shank says, with this cheap-feeling plastic. And we've talked about that, I don't know, about 150 times. But
Yes.
the latest rumors, or maybe the only rumors, about the Galaxy S5, which, by the way, who knows? This came to us from Android Geeks via BGR, so who knows? But sorry, not to cast aspersions on either of these outlets. I was just saying it's not our original story. This didn't come to us directly. If we're to believe this source, says Stephen, Samsung could be taking a page from HTC and the One and deliver a fully aluminum Galaxy S5. Now, of course, by this time next year, aluminum's going to be passé, and everyone else will have moved on to, cobalt.
Adamantium?
Yeah, right. Unobtainium, fully unobtainium shells. And apparently this tip comes from an anonymous trusted source close to the South Korean phone maker. Who knows what that means?
They could be... it could be anybody.
A Korean street meat vendor outside of Samsung's South Korea headquarters.
8 degrees of separation from Samsung.
Yeah. But I think the reason I included this in the rundown was not just so that we could laugh about this stupid thing, but how stubborn do we think Samsung is? That's my question to you. Do you think that they will go another generation after getting really beaten up in the press, and some would say unfairly beaten up in the press, for using the same old materials? I mean, Apple can do it because they're Apple, and Samsung is massive, and they can do it. I have no doubt that they would survive and flourish even if they did a Galaxy S5 in plastic. But do you think they will?
Apple can do it because they use great materials.
No, they do. They do indeed.
That's a totally different argument.
The 4 and the 4S is a fun thing to cite when you're making fun of Apple, right? Because it's like, look what they did. It's just the same thing. But the 4 was a delicious piece of hardware.
Yeah, it was the first time, and it was the second time, and it still is with the iPhone 5, although I would have loved to have seen it bigger and a different design. Mm-hmm. With Samsung, what they're doing is they're creating a lineup that is just literally every step between. It is every stepping stone between the smallest and the largest phone, and they're trying to get it to where every single one of them has the same design. So I don't want to say that the Note 3 or the S5 won't have the same design. But for them, if they want to continue this and finish what they started, they won't. They'll have the same exact plastic design with the faux metal trim and all that jazz.
Well, right. You're bringing up memories of MWC when Tony and I were shown the Note 8 for the first time, and it matched the leaks exactly, and it looked like a blown-up S3. And it's like, all right, so you got to give them points for being consistent. You got to be like, all right, cool. You guys have a vision, and you're sticking with it, and your deal is lightweight, glossy, plastic, faux metal. Fine. That's your thing, and you're making a family based around it. So that's another thing. How likely do we think that they're going to abandon that for an entirely new design language, given how much they've thrown into this already? If nothing else, you can tell a Samsung device when you look at it. Yes, are they somewhat generic? Yes, but there's still also like, oh yeah, that's a Galaxy.
And why would they abandon something that's performing so well?
Right.
Look at the S4. Look at the cells.
Yeah.
It's outpacing all of the other Galaxy S cells combined.
Which is just nuts. And this is a factor. I'm sure there's a name for this in marketing and in sales and in business circles and all the schools that I didn't go to when I was busy in acting school. But, it's like there's that notion that once you are big, you get bigger faster. Right, and we've seen this too. You see this on YouTube. You see this in any kind of metrics where you're like, the more audience you have, the faster your audience grows, and it kind of is this snowballing, exponential thing.
As narcissistic as it may sound, that's how I feel with Twitter and Google Plus right now. I mean, I don't have a ton of followers or anything, but once I started gaining followers, they just kind of started adding on and adding on and adding on, and that's why I've just kind of been pushing it.
Hold on. I just need to buy a domain real quick. Unfollow Taylor Martin.
Yeah.
So you're right, and they're doing so well because they're so big and because the name recognition is so great with the Galaxy brand now.
Yeah, it would be stupid for them to abandon it, at least marketing wise.
Absolutely.
But to appease the press, the only people that are really upset about it, it really wouldn't make that much sense from a business standpoint.
Yeah, because millions and millions, tens of millions of people are buying these things. And the S4.
Yes, and dozens of millions more will. I mean, it's...
Yeah. No, I mean, it's true. Yeah, it's not going to stop.
Because it has plastic. Yes, it feels cheap, but yes, it works.
Right.
And it's the most well-rounded offering on the market. It really is.
Like most well-rounded in terms of like how? How do you mean?
It speaks to just about everyone. It has a removable battery, expandable storage, the best specifications you can get on a phone, at least the best collection of specifications you can get on a phone. Right. A great camera. So it's like the iPhone. I've said this for years. The iPhone is not the best. It's never really been the best at everything, but it's great at everything. So it's the best
great at what it does.
Things.
It's really great at what it is able to do.
Yeah, so let me rephrase that. It's the best in only a few things, but overall, it's a very balanced device. It's great at a lot of things, not the best at everything. So the Samsung's newest devices are kind of the same thing. They're really balanced in that they're great at a lot of things, but they're not the absolute best in everything, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, we're seeing the Galaxy S4, the Galaxy family, and the Galaxy S family grow here. We've complained a lot about the Galaxy brand dilution here at Pocketnow, and I think rightfully so, because Samsung really just will throw the name Galaxy on anything mobile, anything with a radio in it, basically.
So this is a Bluetooth headset. It's the Galaxy Bluetooth
it's a Samsung
headset.
Galaxy Blue. Yeah, right. Like that doesn't exist, by the way. But probably should. But yeah, but they've always shown a little bit of restraint with the S moniker, right? There's like Galaxy S.
Recently.
Exactly, and that's what I want to talk about. So we saw the Galaxy S, we saw the Galaxy S2, and then all the US variants of that. The Galaxy S3, and then they started doing this Galaxy S3 Mini, Galaxy S2 Mini, this kind of thing, and the Galaxy S4 Mini, blah 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 blah. But now we're starting to see the Galaxy S4 Active, and we announced that this was official, I think, last week. We didn't announce. Samsung announced it, and we talked about it on the show.
No, we announced it.
Yeah, we announced it.
We
Samsung
tell Samsung
asked
when
us
they
to
can
announce.
release
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Get it right, people.
I'm sorry. You're right. But the Galaxy S4 Active became official to the surprise of no one. But now, just this morning before the show started, we got the release from AT&T that the second largest carrier in the U.S. is going to pick it up, and it's going to launch soon. It's launching it in like a
21st.
week. Yeah,
21st.
it's launching in exactly 8 days.
Also, I can hear the construction in the background.
Oh my God! Yeah,
You could probably hear big trucks driving by in my background. So.
I can't hear anything from your background because I'm just getting hit. Remember, I'm in a 4x6 box with dudes directly outside with staple guns. Like it hurts. What are we talking about? Oh, so the Galaxy S. Yeah, right. So we talked about the Galaxy S brand, but now we're seeing the Galaxy S4 Active, which is going to launch in like a week, and that's exciting to me because I love waterproof phones. And what have we complained about this whole time with the S series? What were we just talking about, Taylor? The
Samsung
Samsung phones,
waterproof.
right? Well, but the Galaxy phones feel cheap because of this hyperglaze BS. And Samsung has proven with devices like the Rugby for AT&T and some others that they know how to make a beefy device that actually feels sturdy in the hand. So mix most of the specs from the Galaxy S4 with that hardcore physical construction. I mean, you have a beautiful device there, with a 1080p display that can, endure some abuse. I can't wait to test it out, and I'm really looking forward to just beating up on it and seeing how well it can hold up. Because there are active people out there.
That one.
I would love to. We're waiting to hear if we get a review device soon or not. Because actually, we kind of Samsung's really good about getting us devices early. They're probably the best, and I'm a little surprised we don't have one already. So we will see.
I've got like 8 Samsung phones right here. So.
Seriously, yeah. I'm just buried in Samsung product because they're really good with demo devices. I really like the way they do it. But hey, we'll see. But that's not the only new Galaxy S device. We also have an official announcement of the Galaxy S4 Zoom. Let's talk about this thing, huh? Listeners, if you don't know what the Galaxy S4 Zoom is, neither do we. I am looking at a photo of it right now, and I still don't really get it. It's like a Galaxy camera and a Galaxy S4 mated and produced an offspring.
It's like they cut both of them in half and just glued them together.
Yeah, Tony even calls it a Frankenstein device in the post. Apparently, the specs. So it's if you are not looking at the post, if you're running like our friend Nick Gray is, or if you are riding the bus or something, and you can't look this up, it looks like a Galaxy S4 with a big old lens sticking out the back. I mean, that's about the best I can do, right?
Yeah. Except for it's really, really, really rounded. Very rounded.
Well, it's as rounded as the S4 is.
No, look at the back. Do you see the back?
I don't see the back because there's not a back. There's not a photo of the back.
Scroll down to the comments.
To the comments. Oh, all right. Oh.
It's very, 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 very rounded.
Ew. So Grant Butler posted the press image of the back of the thing. Ooh.
Hey, I went to a school with a guy named Grant Butler.
Is that right? I wonder if it's the same guy. So
I don't know.
Look, the shutter release has been moved to the top too.
Just kidding. It wasn't Grant Butler. Just kidding.
Oh, well, that's dumb. So yeah, Samsung lens. This thing, I think it actually looks better than the Galaxy camera does. I always thought the Galaxy camera was a clunky looking thing. This actually looks like I wouldn't mind carrying it. Now, it's funny. I'm tempted to, because of the speed with which Samsung appears to develop things. I don't seriously believe this, but it is funny to think that maybe this is a product of all those EOS rumors. Like 3 weeks ago, Samsung's like, wait, what are they building? All right, couple this together real quick. And they're like, bam, here, Galaxy S4 Zoom.
This is just photoshopped. This isn't even real yet.
Right, yeah. This thing, now...
Wow, QHD. Ugh.
I'm sorry, it's a QHD screen?
Yeah, 4.3-inch Super AMOLED with QHD, 960 by 540.
Ouch.
1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor that we have no idea what it is.
Varies on the market, though. It that might change for...
Yeah, okay. 16 megapixel main camera on the back.
Oh, I got to change that. Fix that typo.
Yes, you do. No, this one was made in Maine.
This camera only works in the northeastern United States.
A 10 times optical zoom at between 24 millimeters and 240 millimeters, and f-stop 3.1 to 6.3. 24 millimeters at 3.1 is actually pretty terrible. So yeah,
Android 4.2.
Most you'll see 2.8, 1 something. Most phones are 2.1, I believe.
Right.
1.5 gigabytes of RAM, 8 gigabytes of internal storage. That needs to stop, Samsung. Stop it.
Yeah, because the
8
stock
gigabytes
storage.
is 2004.
And because the counter argument is, well, it has a micro SD card slot. What do you care about onboard storage? And the reason you care about onboard storage still is
because the stock image, TouchWiz image, takes up 1.5 gigabytes before it's installed.
Yeah.
Get out of here, Samsung. Come on.
And as I understand it, now, I was always one of these people where I was like, I don't care if you put 4 gigs of storage on the thing. Just give me a memory card slot and I'm fine. But
I used to as well. But Android doesn't really, or Google doesn't really incorporate the SD card with Android anymore. Matias Duarte has effectively killed that. That ship has sailed.
How? I'm behind on this news. Legitimately, I actually don't know why this is. I mean,
he came forward and said before that having 2 drives is more confusing for the end user. It's better to just have everything on 1 drive. I can agree to that somewhat. A micro SD card slot has a purpose. It does. But the way that it's working in Android now, it's kind of useless unless you carry your own media. What happened before is you could move all of your apps, or most of your apps, to the SD card using stock software, without rooting, without anything. You just download all your apps, move them over to the SD card. Now you can't do that. They took that option out.
Interesting.
So an SD card is used only for your own media, or if you root, which is not a valid argument, you can move apps and other content over to the SD card.
Interesting.
Rooting is not a valid argument. Stop it, people.
Hey,
Sorry, I'm on my soapbox today.
No, that's cool. I dig it. I was just looking at this image again of the Galaxy S4 Zoom, and do you see that hole in the top? Yeah, I'm not seeing this called out on the sheet, and maybe I'm missing it, but it looks like there's an IR port on the top of the thing, just like the S4.
Yeah, that's IR. Yep.
Is it called out on this thing? No. Anyway,
I'm so happy the Mega has IR. It's an old technology that should be in everything, because I don't want to reach for my TV remote all the time. Just my phone, because I usually have it in my hand anyway when I'm already on when I'm watching TV. So boom, power the TV off.
Yeah. So if you are checking this post, listeners, you can go down to the comments, and actually people have been sharing some pretty cool images, including a hilarious.
Samsung already has a Galaxy S4.
Grafted onto a phone. It's awesome. But also a side shot comparison of the rumored EOS from Nokia and the Galaxy S4 Zoom. And in that side shot, the Galaxy S4 Zoom certainly shows its true colors. I still don't.
Thick.
It is thick, but I don't mind it. I've always enjoyed that little antenna bump that the Nexus S had, and that the Galaxy Nexus had to a smaller extent. And holding it vertically, you can see that the Galaxy S4 Zoom would look almost exactly like that. I don't really mind that bump at the bottom /side.
It's a pretty thick bump. I know Tony won't,
it is
but
a pretty thick
I'm not sure the quality will be all that great.
Of the images?
Yes.
No, totally, because the Galaxy Zoom images. Wait, hold on. The Galaxy camera images are not that great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
For what it is, it's not all that great. If this were like a Sony phone, this might be something that I would buy. I love Sony imaging. I'll just say that.
Yeah, you haven't used the Tablet Z yet.
That's a different story.
Yeah.
If you take pictures with your tablet, you should be smacked. At least once per picture.
Once per shot. Well, I take one per video I shoot, so.
Well, I deserve a couple smacks myself.
Yeah. All right, we trade smacks at the next trade show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to offer anything up that I'm not willing to take. So
I just experienced like a bout of melancholy, actually, just when you were talking before about storage. My mind wandered. I'm like, trade shows. We're not in trade show season. I'm not going to any. That's sad.
I haven't been anywhere since January.
I know.
I got to get my passport because Tony said I was going to IFA.
Yeah, well,
I don't have my passport. I have to get that yesterday.
I think the thing is, I went to all the shows last year, so I don't think I go to any shows this coming year. Like I used up all my fun cards last year. But anyway, let's move on to Windows Phone, please, because we were talking about the EOS, and we might as well jump right into the Nokia EOS looking like the Lumia 920's twin, which is this fun headline from Tony, where somebody has placed, this is VisiLeaks, I think, yes, from via WP Central. VisiLeaks has put a Nokia Lumia 920 next to a Nokia EOS, apparently. By this time, it might be debunked, but we don't have an update tag on this. But anyway, they look very, very similar from the front.
Yeah, the first VisiLeaks was faked, or at least it looked very faked. Because
it was sitting in the grass there?
It was sitting in the grass, and there were two different light sources, and the branding on the camera was actually not embossed. So some of it was in set, and some of it was not at all. It was flesh with the surface of the.
Nokia uses human flesh.
It was made with human flesh.
Yeah, but Taylor, I mean, look at the awesome watermark on this. How can you not be hip to this? I mean, just gosh. So,
wow.
Yeah. But,
now,
I can believe this. I mean, look, but this is confusing.
Different.
Wait, the aspect?
Yeah, the aspect ratio is different.
What are you talking about? On the display?
Well, just the actual...
the photo?
Well, no, the actual size of the devices. The EOS is actually wider than the 920.
You mean based on this photo? Are you saying that this discredits the photo, or are you saying that's interesting about this rumored device?
That's interesting.
Okay.
Because it looks wider. The one with the camera bump, or not bump, but
the one on the right.
Shutter button, yeah.
The non-920 looks wider. No, the Lumia 920 on the left looks wider to me.
Yes. Okay, that's the Lumia.
Yeah, because the one on the right is the new one. So this proves the point, right? They look so similar from the front, and both of these are black devices, and so it's harder. I mean, if they were whiter or cyan, you could really tell body shape differences, but there's not as much detail because these are dark-colored cases. But what's interesting to me is that we haven't seen this design language before. We haven't seen something as close to the Lumia 920 before. The 928 looks nothing like a 920 from certain angles. The 925, same difference. Nokia has decided to branch out from its N9 sourced, design lineage. But with this rumored EOS, we're looking at something that's very much like what they were doing before. So I'm confused.
Which is also apparently running the next version of Windows Phone because it has the
time.
The time
glance
on
clock. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's cool. I mean, we expect that, but I just didn't expect them to go backwards in design unless they've decided that, okay, for the variants we're going to be fun and we're going to make stuff like the 810, the 822, and the 925 and whatever. But for the core solid flagship, like for the year-long Halo, we're going to stick with the old design. I don't know.
It's like Nokia is doing what Android manufacturers were doing 2 or 3 years ago.
Which is what? Were they sticking
making carrier-specific devices with different designs?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on here. And this looks like, okay, so the 920 is the Galaxy S2 and the 925 is
like the Galaxy S2 Epic 4G Touch. Yeah.
And then your EOS here would be the Galaxy S3 or the S4.
Yeah. So that's a good analogy, I think. If this is true, now I don't know if this observation means that I don't trust the leak anymore. But
we're
seeing so many of these, right? There has to be something to this.
Yeah, and it could also be that this is think of it like a shell, but not finished hardware. It's not a finished design. It could be totally that the finished product might look more like the 928 or something newer, something different, but they stuck with an older design for the development process because we've seen that before as well.
We have, yeah. I mean, normally when they're it's not a case, right? I mean, normally when they throw it in a case, we can tell. But I understand what you mean. If they're loading all the components,
it's not a dummy box.
But then again, there are enough differences here where I think that would require an almost entirely different design. And I don't think Nokia. If you were talking about Samsung, I'd be like, oh yeah. But I don't know if Nokia has the resources to be like, okay, we're going to run a design on this beta hardware that's never going to see the light of day, and then we're going to design this other case for it.
I could also be using like reusing scraps.
Yeah, who knows, right? I don't know.
Hey, pinching pennies, man.
Yeah, man.
We all do it
It's
when we
smart
have to.
when you got to. We're seeing. I don't have this in the rundown, but we're actually seeing some encouraging numbers out of Nokia. I think in Finland they finally. Well, Samsung came along and smacked them down in Finland, right? But then they somewhere else in Europe. I'm sorry that I didn't put this on the rundown. Now it just didn't occur to me. We're seeing some very encouraging sales numbers from Nokia. If anybody wants to point that out in the comments, that would be awesome because I'm totally blanking right now and I don't want to Google it.
I just scrolled down to the comments and there is an awesome one from Adam. He says, every time I see a new pic of the EOS, I throw all my money and credit cards at the monitor, but nothing happens. What gives?
Yes. Yes.
You and every single one of us.
Oh, God. Tell me about it.
I would give Windows Phone a try for something like the EOS. I'm saying it now, and I mean it. You can call my bluff. I mean it. Unlike you saying you'd go back to the, LG?
LG rumor. Yeah, Taylor and Jaime were having a conversation on Twitter about iOS versus Android, and I was like, you freaking people.
The chicken and the egg scenario where it all started, who copied who first.
So boring. But it was a fun discussion. Let's close out Windows Phone because we have Huawei to discuss. Huawei is basically the least exciting OEM to discuss in some instances. Like, I don't necessarily get very excited about their Android phones, but it's always nice to see another Windows Phone OEM, even though I don't think it's looking very good for Windows Phone OEMs. I don't think anybody really has much interest in developing for it. Not developing for it.
Why develop for a
hardware
platform
for
that you have to pay for when you could develop for Android? Which there is a counter argument to that because most Android manufacturers have to pay Microsoft to use Google's platform.
Right, they pay the licensing fee to Microsoft. Right, yeah, exactly. No, but it's sad because I was very excited back when Windows Phone 7 launched and was like, wow, look at all these guys. They've got Samsung, they've got LG, they've got HTC, and then there was who's the fourth? Who's the fourth in that blast of Windows Phone 7 devices? Do you remember?
Dell.
Oh yeah, Dell with the Venue Pro, the most awesome thing. I thought Dell was going to come back on the Venue Pro because back then Windows Phone buzz was huge. So
yeah, but I learned not to trust Dell after that so-called MP3 player that they were going to release back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
What was that thing?
I don't know.
It was so impressive. Everybody was like, yeah, this is going to kill iPod. And then it launched and nobody bought one.
Yeah, it happens, right? But what has happened is that has ebbed. Windows Phone 7 ran into difficulties. It wasn't adopted. Then they had to change the engine while they were on the racetrack with Windows Phone 8. And we saw these manufacturers. We even saw these bombastic announcements like HTC comes out, I was like, check it out, now we're the awesome Windows Phone manufacturer, and then that just totally fell apart.
Yeah, well, my stance on the start of Windows Phone.
I don't.
I wrote that editorial that you said was going to just start a flame war, and some people were like, Taylor's a Windows hater, blah, blah, like they always are. Mm-hmm. But nobody really said anything a lot of people actually agreed with what I said about Windows Phone being boring by design. Now, you said I was wrong in that, but
I didn't even go into the comments on that because I was afraid. It's got like 170 comments right now.
I don't know.
I wanted to stay away from it.
It was crazy because for the first 4 or 5 hours there really weren't any negative comments. But I was like, is this thing actually live or did somebody just accidentally find this and share it? But
yeah.
There were really no negative comments, and there are some in there, but it's not the typical
It's a typical explosion. Yeah.
Pitchfork march against Taylor.
It's
there were some people that were like, yes, their marketing was a very poor decision. It sounded good at the time. I'm sure it really did against BlackBerry.
We're talking listeners. We're talking about the initial Microsoft ad blast with you need to be saved from your phones. Get in, get out,
Windows
get back
Phone,
to life.
Yeah, the slogan was Windows Phone will save you from your phone, and that was
it wasn't
great.
The slogan; it was the approach. Yeah.
There was a.
I don't think they ever used that as a tagline.
Oh yeah, it was on an ad. There was an ad that said that at the end in text.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
That's where I got it. If you Google search Windows Phone will save you from your phone, you can probably find it.
That's what I'm doing.
Actually, I'm going to do it now too.
I already did it. And no, Google's not giving me any of that action. I ain't got nothing. I ain't using quotes.
I know they. Wait, Windows Phone.
You know what? It pops up a lot of headlines that are very familiar in style.
Windows Phone 7 ads Save Us from Our Phones video. Here it is.
Okay, all right, I believe you. Okay,
Oh, this
I
video
believe
is
you.
private.
Oh, well, anyway,
Come on.
it doesn't matter. So the point is, we had this Windows Phone thing. We had this ad push. Okay,
Today, Junior.
today. No, so we had this ad push. The ad push didn't work right. Windows Phone's adoption rate, blah 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 blah. The point is, it's struggling to gain market share, like it has been for years. And as a result, some manufacturers have backed up. When was the last time we saw an LG Windows Phone? We have never seen an LG Windows Phone 8 device, correct?
I don't think so.
Right. One might say that that's not a big loss, but I don't know. I disagree with devices like the Optimus G proving that LG can do interesting stuff. I would like to see another OEM there. And then we had Huawei, who was kind of strong on it, and I expected the W1 and W2 like ages ago, but those did not appear until recently. I think some people have. I think Engadget has a review of the W1 out or something. But this W2 is now rumored, and the suggestion is that from the ad copy, which shows it sitting in a tornado of water, that the Huawei W2 could be waterproof, which is obviously one of the big things that's going on in phones right now. And we don't have, outside of Japan, I don't think, we don't have a Windows Phone that is waterproof, right?
Just to update you on my status, I just yawned a little bit.
Did you? Did you yawn? Thank you.
Yes. I found the ad if you'd like it.
I hate that. I hate that idea. Don't send that to me.
Hold on. I will read it to you then. All right. It says, oh, come on now. YouTube buffering. Really?
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. You're right.
Here we go.
I don't care.
It's time for phone to save us from our phones. The new Windows Phone 7.
Okay.
Or the new Windows Phone. To get us in and out and back to life.
Mm-hmm.
So, my take on that is that by design, it is meant to be kind of uninteresting because they want you to use your phone, put it back in your pocket, and get back to what you were doing.
I always thought that was a bit of a stretch. I don't think that's ever what they wanted to do. I think that's what I think the ad people looked at the Windows Phone, and they took it home, and they used it for a couple days or weeks, and they were like, oh, all right, so here's this take. Let's do this bold, fresh take on it. And you know what? I have to say, those ads were funny.
Oh, yeah, they were funny.
With the guy, using his phone at the urinal, and the other guy's like, really? And the guy with the hot wife who's dressed up, and she's like, really? Yeah, he dropped it in the urinal, didn't he?
Yeah, he dropped it in the... That's this ad.
The kid who gets beamed in the head by his son, those ads were awesome.
They were funny.
Yeah.
But they were basically directly trying to compete with BlackBerry and that enterprise market where, being off your phone is important because, it's a work phone and they want you to use it, get back to work. That was what BlackBerry was always designed for, and that's why it never really succeeded in the consumer market. And it was so great at enterprise.
I think you're overreaching. I think it did succeed in the consumer market pretty brilliantly with the Pearl and the Curve.
Well, it did for a short period. But what I'm saying is that the company never ran itself, BlackBerry never ran itself as a truly consumer-centric company. It was always about enterprise first.
Right, it was.
So that's what I was trying to get to.
It was like Nextel back in the day. I mean, Nextel was enterprise for a long time. It was corporate. It was construction work. And then they were like, oh, hey, people really like this walkie-talkie because they can save on their minutes.
Yeah,
Let's have a string of retail stores.
So rather than it didn't perform well in the consumer market, it did. A lot of people had BlackBerries for a long time, but it didn't succeed long in the consumer market. It was like it flared up, and then the iPhone came out, and then it just kind of died off. Yeah.
So I don't know. This will be exciting. I don't know if we have a Huawei Windows Phone on sale in the States. I know, but Engadget generally doesn't review stuff that doesn't go on sale here, so I don't know. What do you...
There you go.
What is this? The ad? I don't
get your flag waving.
I'm so done talking about this stupid ad.
Yeah.
Funny smartphone addicts commercial. Yes. All right. So anyway, the point is, I'm done talking about that. Huawei waterproof. I want a waterproof Windows Phone. That's all I'm saying.
I want a waterproof phone.
Well,
get a
not
waterproof the Galaxy
phone,
S4
then.
Active though.
What's the matter with you? You had the Xperia Z for a while.
I had the Xperia Z for a while. That's all I'm going to say.
You had your waterproof. Well, with that, I think it's time for listener mail.
Well, Wow, this is the earliest I've
Bong,
ever been to
bong.
listener mail.
Yeah,
Ever.
I know. Well, the thing is, I'm just antsy. I want to get to the Q10. It's not even here yet, but I want to get to it.
I want to get to the last listener mail question. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we actually have really good listener mail this time around, so I wanted to say. So, just a note before we actually read some of these letters. Some of these pieces of listener mail have gotten really kind of awesome questions that are very technical.
And they're getting long.
Well, they're getting long again. Please keep these short, guys. Please, because we are usually on a time limit. But the thing is, some of these technical questions are ones that I can't answer on the podcast, and almost nobody can. I think Joe is the only one who can answer a couple of these. So what I'm doing is I'm holding those in the buffer, and I'm going to, if it's possible, turn them into editorials. If Joe has the time to do them, because some of them are really awesome technical questions. So please stay tuned for those if you haven't heard them on the air.
You don't trust me?
No, you're actually really good too, but Joe like builds this stuff for a living.
Yeah, Joe does know a lot more than I do about development, and
software.
low-level stuff, kernel stuff.
Yeah.
He knows a lot more. I know quite a bit, but that's only from tinkering and learning through trial and error. He actually knows this stuff because he does it for a living.
Exactly, and that's why I called him the handyman in our little
Yes,
commercial.
he is.
He's the handyman.
Yeah, there are a lot of comments on
It's so
YouTube.
funny because I posted the Pocketnow commercial to my personal Facebook, and I was like, "Hey, here's our new commercial," and the only comment I got was Joe, which I just had to read in his voice when I read it to myself. He just shows up, and all he says is, "I'm the handyman."
Wow, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have no idea what I was going to say.
Well, good. Let's get to Justin's piece of listener mail. Hello, Pocketnow. My name is Justin, and I listen to your podcasts every week during my commute to school. I might be in the minority, but sometimes I wish they were a bit longer. Actually, Justin, you are not. A lot of people say they wish the podcast could be longer. And
that's why he keeps asking me to come back, because I keep talking.
That's right, because Taylor drags it out like a pro. But then, like right after those comments asking for it to be longer, there's always some dip who's
This is
like,
too long.
Yeah, it's like, an hour
Get off my
43?
lawn.
Who listens to this much podcast?
We want an hour and 43-minute podcast condensed to 3 minutes.
Right.
And we expect no less.
All the time. So, Justin, thank you. And also thank you for telling us where you listen to the show, because I have this really weird thing where I'm like, I really like knowing where people listen to us. Like I say, our friend Nick just let us know that he listens to the show on his run, on his jog, and he's certainly not the only one of those. And he's from htcsource.com, by the way. Our friend Nick from CES, in my case. Did you met him before?
Android
then?
and me as well.
Sorry, I always get it messed up. Who writes for whom? But anyway, Justin, we're stepping all over your email. I'm sorry. I've been thinking about this question for some time now, says Justin, and I was wondering what the Pocketnow team thinks. Do you think Google will ever partner up with other OEMs to release Google Edition tablets? Also, how do you feel about Google Edition tablets being released? And then Justin talks for a while about his own thoughts on this. Now, this is a good question. It's something I haven't really thought about.
I have.
Well, because we've seen Google Edition smartphones, right? We've seen the Galaxy S4 Google Edition. We're about to see the HTC One Google Edition. These are cool things. And we're familiar also with Nexus smartphones and now Nexus tablets. But this is a specific question about a Google Edition tablet, a tablet that was released initially with a skin and then is given the Google Edition treatment, right?
Yeah.
What would be the one? What would be the one for you? I don't know.
Two points to make here.
Please.
A lot of tablets come with a lot more lightweight software than their smartphone counterparts. Asus is a perfect example. Yeah. Okay. Asus is a perfect example because their tablets are very stock-like. There's very little. They make very little changes when they build the software for their tablets. Which is a different story now that they have the phone pad and the pad phone.
Yeah, because they need
but the Transformer brands were very stock-like. But then you get to the Galaxy Tabs, the Galaxy Notes, and all these other tablets. And yes, absolutely, every manufacturer ever should make all of their phones available as a Google Edition. At least maybe not sell them through Google.
Tablets?
Both. And maybe they don't need to sell them through Google, but they should offer stock Android on every phone because it's not that hard.
So they have to. It's not hard, right? But here's the thing. Think about the Galaxy Note 10.1 running stock Android.
It would be useless.
You wouldn't be able to use the S Pen, right? Yeah, like
Yeah.
it wouldn't be optimized for those stereo speakers, I don't think. I mean, I'm just kind of talking out my butt there, but the S Pen is the real thing. Like,
Yeah,
that's the reason. The only reason I would consider a Galaxy Note 10.1 is for the S Pen, and you wouldn't be able to use it.
Yeah, but the Google Edition Galaxy Tab would be a great idea.
Why?
It really would.
Because our Galaxy Tab's exciting. Why wouldn't you just buy a Nexus 10?
Well, yes, in this case you would use or buy a Nexus 10, but I don't know.
Yeah. So
I mean,
what would be an exciting one?
case,
No, I'll tell you what. An Xperia Tablet Z.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
And actually, Justin says that a Google Edition Xperia Tablet Z would have expandable storage. It would also be able to upgrade to the latest OS updates, and of course, it would be waterproof. So that would be my number one choice, I think.
Yeah. Right now, it's kind of hard to say because there's so many tablet manufacturers that really slowed down. Asus was pumping out like 6 or 7, 8 different tablets per year, and they really haven't done much of anything this year, minus the Pad Phone and Phone Pad. So they really, really turned that notch down quite a bit. Samsung, they were releasing the Galaxy Tab 8, the Galaxy Tab 8.9, the Galaxy Tab 10.1, the Galaxy Tab 7, the Galaxy Tab...
oh, God, I'm just asleep already.
I can't even keep up with all the Galaxy Tabs, and this year they've had, what?
Gross. I don't know.
Pretty much
Galaxy Tab 17.
The Galaxy Note 8, and that's...
Well, no, they've got the Galaxy Tab 3 or whatever has been announced.
Yeah,
So, anyway.
I'm just saying, like, they've all kind of turned it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's because not Android tablets haven't performed that well against the iPad.
That's exactly it. The Android tablet world is just so, as a whole, frankly, in my opinion, is very, very uncompelling. I don't get, like, we go to these trade shows, and you literally, guys, you can walk along the edge of the perimeter of the trade show in the, what did we call it, the cesspool at CES, and you can just find hundreds of Android tablets. It is the future everyone predicted back in 2009, except it's just as bad. It's these kind of knockoff brandless Android tablets are everywhere. And even the ones from the major brands are underwhelming in most cases.
Yep. Last year, I would only have recommended 3 tablets, and all of them were made by Asus.
Yeah.
So it was the Transformer Pad Infinity, the Transformer Pad 300, I think it was, and the Nexus 7.
Which, getting back to those Asus tablets, getting back to the question, you wouldn't be able to run them if they were Google Edition, or you wouldn't be able to run them with their keyboard docks, right?
Oh yeah, you would.
Oh,
it's just
a keyboard attach. I'm sorry.
It's just a keyboard attachment.
So
yeah.
Okay, so those are. I'm sorry, you're right. Those are the opposite example. Those are the example of a good one in addition to the tablet C. Okay. So
yes, they should be available, but things like the Note 10.1, no, because there are things that really make it a different tablet that Google or stock software would not take advantage of. The S Pen, for example.
Yeah. So Justin makes some great points here, and he actually says the tablet purchases occur less frequently, too, in comparison to phones. So having future-proof software is welcoming. I totally agree, Justin, and it would be awesome. I just don't think that there's really enough buzz yet with Android tablets because of all the things we just talked about to make this likely.
But Google at I/O this year showed their dedication to pushing Android tablet development.
Yep,
so
which is very important.
Every other phrase was Android tablets.
Yep.
Develop Android tablet apps. Tablet apps. Tablet apps. Tablet apps. I mean, it's just like, okay, we got it.
Yep.
And then a couple more hundred times, tablet apps.
Tablet apps, yeah, which is great. And so anything can happen in the future, as always. And Justin, thank you for the email. That is an awesome question. And moving on to John Blake. Hi, guys. I would like to start off by saying I really appreciate the podcast. They are very informative and a great source of entertainment for me. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
I currently have the 4S, and my contract is ending soon. My question is, now that iOS 7 has been announced and will work on the iPhone 4 and up, what would it take for you to upgrade to the new iPhone over the iPhone 5?
Larger display.
Okay, yeah. So John goes on to talk about it. Of course, it's going to be a little thinner and lighter. I know this is impossible to predict, but if you were in my shoes, here's the real question. Would you wait the extra month and see what is to come, or would you assume that, like most iPhone upgrades, there will only be a slight improvement and just get the phone now, like the iPhone 5, or maybe even an HTC One? John, I'm not even going to go into the HTC One territory. If you want to switch to Android, that's a totally different conversation. What is very interesting to me is this question of, should I wait a couple months, or should I get something right now? I will never, ever tell anyone, if there's a device coming along in 3 months or less, an almost guaranteed chance that we're going to see a new device in less than a quarter or a quarter of a year, I never tell anyone to get what's out there right now.
Yep.
Because even if you're seeing a jump from the 4 to the 4S, for example, the 4S actually performed much better in terms of speed. And even today, when I hold a 4 and a 4S and I run like current apps on the current software, like the 4 just lags like a champ, and the 4S is like, "What's up? I'm just doing this." You know?
Yep. Speaking to future proofing, that's kind of the point here. If you wait just a couple months, you're going to get a phone that's going to last a little bit longer,
right?
Because the software coming in the future. So, say you go with the iPhone 5, it might not run well on iOS 8 next year.
Exactly.
So,
and I have a friend who consistently upgrades her iPhone one generation behind. Like when the iPhone 5 came out, she was getting like the 4S. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, I get it, right? I understand why you would want to save a little bit of money up front, and I understand that not everyone can afford that extra $100 at the purchase point. Totally, I can't. I just put it on credit cards, and I'm just an idiot. But the thing is, it is anathema to me to buy the last generation product when the new generation products come out, because Taylor, you said it, future proofing. You just don't want to get too far behind, especially with Apple products, because I think Apple gets a lot of unfair flack just because they do so many things well. But some of the most justified flack they get is that their new software runs like crap on older devices.
Yep, and I think it's partially intentional.
I think it is too. I don't think that's an accident by any stretch of the imagination.
They've been to court over it before. There have been lawsuits.
This intentional, like built-in obsolescence. They've been sued over it. I'm not surprised. They deserve it because it's just sickening. So anyway, John, definitely
my suggestion is get the original iPhone.
Get the 07 iPhone and just use SMS, and that's all you need, really. Or the LG Rumor. Good device.
Or Dare. There you go.
Oh, very nice. So thanks for all your help, and keep these podcasts coming. You're about halfway to 100. It is true, John. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of the Pocketnow Weekly podcast, and I'm just jazzed about that. I love this podcast. It's so much fun.
It is. It is. I'm sad when Michael's like, "No, you do not get to be on the podcast this week."
I know. I'm sad about that too. But
I'm just like, okay, I'll just sleep in that day.
Yeah. Because we record in the morning. My least favorite aspect of the Pocketnow Weekly is I have to wake up to do it. So next question is from Kainwa Murphy. It's about as close. Quinoa. I don't know, but
quinoa is definitely not quinoa. That is a food, and it's not spelled anything like that.
Hey, you don't know, man. You don't know.
And quinoa is delicious, by the way.
I need to look this up. Do you want to look? Can I look up this name real quick?
Just call him Murphy.
No, that's like disrespectful and whatnot, right? Meaning of quinoa, baby names. Origin is Hawaiian. Wow.
Oh, well, I can see that. Yeah.
Its meaning is the name. And now I have a funny videos for moms ad blasting in my ears featuring the cast of Monsters, so I'm very distracted. Thank you very much, Free Dictionary or whoever you are. Anyway, let's get to the point. For the record, says the mail, you guys are awesome. Thank you. Also, I really hope this is where to send listener mail because my iPad doesn't show a description of the last weekly, and my 7th Gen Nano is confusing. Amen. Anyway, I have a question for you. What if WebOS never really stopped what it was doing? What if it kept on going and gained the traction of OSs like iOS or Android? Even got the amount and quality of the apps that they have. And WebOS was starting to pick up at one point. Do you think that it would be popular? Maybe Android or iOS popular? Hope you guys will respond with your opinion. Awesome question.
Yes.
And Taylor answers yes, and Taylor says it was an awesome question.
It was an awesome question.
Okay.
Would it be popular? Maybe. Palm was popular back in the day, so there's every bit of possibility that WebOS could have been popular. I think it came at it was just a poorly timed product because it came out right just before the second Android phone hit the market, and that was the CDMA HTC Hero on Sprint, which they launched right beside each other a few weeks apart. And or maybe it was after
the Hero actually came
right
a bit later actually. The pre beat the Hero because
that's right.
was already starting to struggle a little bit, and then I saw Sprint talking about the Hero, and I was like, guys, don't do this. Don't just jump off the pre.
That's right. Yeah, because I was working at Best Buy at the time, and I got the pre the day before it launched. I think.
Did you really?
Yeah.
You had the pre?
Yeah, I had the original pre.
I didn't know that you rocked the original pre.
What? We talked about this a few weeks ago.
Oh.
I had the original pre, the pre 2, the pre
Oh,
plus.
we did talk about it. Yeah, I'm sorry. But I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it. Yeah, I didn't know you got it on launch day, I guess. You got it on WebOS
The day
2009 06 06? 06 05?
Yes.
Oh, that's
we
cool.
got in trouble because we bought them the day before and we were employees at Best Buy.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yes.
So you were running WebOS 1.0.1 the day before they pushed out 1.0.2 to fix some critical bug. I don't know what it was. So by the way, do you remember? Did you ever look in the WebOS debug logs? Like, did you ever look at the code, all the funny stuff that Palm had to leave in the code because they ran out of time?
No.
Oh, God, there was so much. Listeners, if you can find this out there, I can't even provide a link, but if you can find it out there, some forum, maybe it was pre-central back then, there was this great thread of like, guys, look at all this funny stuff in the code. And the developers had just been like, these commented out lines, which were like, this is really, really janky and an ugly workaround, but we have to do this. We'll fix later. Like, it was everywhere. And the camera app and the phone app was like, this is a crappy user experience, but we have no choice. Like, it was nuts.
But would it be popular today?
Yeah.
I can answer that two ways. Would it be? I don't know. Would we want it to be? Absolutely, because a lot of us here at Pocketnow love WebOS and what it was, what it stood for, everything about it. Part of WebOS, or at least part of the experience, and Michael, you're going to hate me for this, but part of it lives on through Android.
No, it's true, because Matthias came over.
Because Matthias Duarte is the one who created the interface.
Right,
or at least helped create. It was his creation.
Yeah, he headed the team that. Created.
So it was his creation. The user interface for WebOS, and we're seeing a lot of that in Android now.
The swiping off of the notifications from the notification shade that's straight out of WebOS.
Swiping to close recent apps and all sorts of things. So yes, in terms of user experience and everything, it would be easy to use and it was when we had it. It was a bit of a learning curve because it was probably the first to use gestures like it did.
Yes, it absolutely was, and I think that was a real big hurdle for it, and that's why it didn't get. I feel like we've had a little bit of WebOS overload recently because, we had the anniversary date and we did our little unboxing, and then Adam now has his Touchpad Go review up. But it's funny because this kind of stuff comes in waves, because just last night I was sitting there trying to get away from the internet, and Chorp, an old friend of mine from the pre-central boards, actually tweeted at me. He was like, hey, check it out. Sparkle 2 just got released for WebOS. And Sparkle's that game we were talking about a couple weeks ago with Adam on the show where like it was one of the only good games the Touchpad had when it launched. Yeah. And so I downloaded it immediately and I got hooked on it. Now, Sparkle's, of course, available for other platforms, but the amazing thing was that 10 Tons, the developer, bothered to release it for WebOS. Like it's like there's no hack. It's in the HP app catalog. You tap on it, you pay HP $3, and you get Sparkle 2. So I stayed up late playing that last night. It was just bringing back all these great memories of WebOS. So, I think to answer the question, I agree with you completely, Taylor. We all would have wanted it to be popular. WebOS, it would be my contention, though, that it was not a victim of timing. I think it came along at a great time. In fact, as I've said before, one journalist at the Palm pre-announcement said that when WebOS was first unveiled, he looked down at the iPhone in his hand and thought that WebOS made it look antiquated and old and janky.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something that really happened. I think everyone pretty much agreed with that WebOS was this cutting-edge thing that was beautiful. But as we've recently learned from an interview that I believe somebody else conducted with John Rubinstein, maybe it was The Verge, or I don't remember. I don't know.
I missed it.
You missed it? Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't cite it properly right now. But basically, John Rubinstein was like, revealed for the first time that them getting into bed with Sprint exclusively was because they had no choice. They had a deal with Verizon that fell through. They had a deal with Vodafone that fell through, so they were stuck with Sprint.
Yeah, and he said that selling to HP was a big waste.
Oh, right. And that was a great quote. He's like, talk about a waste. I wouldn't have ever wanted to sell it to HP if I knew they were just going to shut it down, And, of course, we can agree with that. But I don't know. WebOS had some real big handicaps to adoption. Part of it was a carrier deal.
Was hardware.
And,
a lot of it was hardware.
The Pre's hardware was utter crap.
It was, yes. I liked the Pre 2.
Me too.
It was a lot better.
A lot of people said that thing that you say, like the Pre 2 is what the Pre should have been. Like that's a cliche, but it's true.
That and just an all touchscreen phone. Like, why was that so difficult?
Because
Just like BlackBerry didn't want to give up their keyboards, neither did Palm, and it ended in a fiery death.
it did. And
what was it? The Windsor Knot? Is that the
Windsor Knot
all-touch?
is the device, the all-touch device that never was, like the pre-3 without a keyboard. But and we've talked to Adam about that. But regardless of that, there was a problem. There was problems with the software too. The pre-2, I remember seeing that for the first time at an Engadget reader meetup in New York City back before I did this. Before I was a writer, I was just a fanboy. And I stood in line for this reader meetup for like 2 hours in the sun and got inside, and the first table I went to was Palm because they had the pre-2 and it wasn't released yet. And this was right after they'd missed a cycle, so Palm was not even really in the news. And they were like, yeah, we're just, we got this pre-2. And I'm like, oh, let me see that. And I remember being amazed at how buttery smooth the interface was, because on the pre, you remember the initial versions of WebOS were not very smooth.
No,
but
they weren't.
2.0, I forgot what they did. They implemented some kind of hardware acceleration. And all of a sudden it ran like it was supposed to. It didn't run like a janky POS.
And then came the touchpad, which was utter garbage,
right?
With,
but
in speed and smooth.
They repeated the exact same mistake, and then like a week later, they released a WebOS update for the touchpad that made it run great. But by that time, it had gotten all the crappy press. So,
and then it went on a fire sale.
Right, and then there was that, and we had all our fun with Apotheker.
I got mine for like 110. I got the 32 gigabyte for 64. What was it? The bigger one?
I don't know. I got mine for $600 on launch day. But
I got mine.
Then
for
I went back to
110
Best Buy,
and
and they credited me the difference because Best Buy was doing that when they were trying to get rid of their inventory, which was cool. Anyway, the point is, to answer the question, I really think WebOS had some serious hurdles. I don't know if it would have been as popular. People don't want to learn things. When you see a device in the retail store that is running a demo on its screen, a looping demo on how to use it, and you can't use the device without seeing that demo because you don't see the gesture area, like, people don't want to put up with that. They're like, I just want to. Where's the icon? Where can I tap on AOL Instant Messenger? Where can I tap on my mail?
Circling back to iOS 7, that's part of a problem with it because sometimes you can swipe left to go backwards, kind of like on BlackBerry 10, but other times you can't. So it's not very.
So
there's
exactly
no visual
like on BlackBerry 10 because it's inconsistent that way.
Yeah, there's no visual cue saying, "Hey, you can swipe backwards to go back." It's just kind of sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, and sometimes it does really bad things.
But you know what though? People are going to learn to do. You know what's not going to happen? People aren't going to buy a whole bunch of iOS 7 loaded iPhones and then return them. That's not going to happen. People are going to learn it because they're going to be forced to because hey, it's the iPhone.
It's a progression, and it's something I touched on when I said that we need to move away from the photorealism and the skeuomorphism. That's why we're moving away, because people understand digital touchscreen interfaces now. You don't need a binding and a calendar app to realize that, hey, this is a calendar app.
Right,
You don't need animated page turning. You don't need all this cool stuff because you actually understand how it works. All that stuff is in there to teach you how it works. And after you learn it, you don't need it anymore. That's why we went from photorealism and skeuomorphism to this flat interface that just kind of looks nice, clean, and it works, and you understand how it works. Right. So it's a progression. Gestures will become second nature over time.
And they will. And right, thanks to the pioneering efforts of WebOS, and then the blatant copying of that by BlackBerry with the playbook. And which is extended into BlackBerry 10, which I actually enjoy using very much. And now with Apple kind of taking the reins as far as new gestures go, we're seeing a progression of that, and it's nice. And we're going to talk about UI in the next piece of listener mail. So yeah, anyway, let's move on. Thank you for the question. It's an awesome question. I think the point is neither one of us knows, but we wish that we did know. We wish WebOS had been given the chance. So
we wish this question didn't have to be asked.
Exactly. An awesome question though, and thank you.
Yes.
Finally, we're wrapping it up with Chris. Here's a question Taylor will appreciate if he's there. Well, he is here. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Greetings from Australia here. I have a question regarding mobile technology in vehicles. Well, greetings from the United States, and thank you for this interesting question. I have a Subaru BRZ on the way, practically the same car as Taylor Martin's FRS. And the one major downside to it, yes, congratulations indeed. The one major downside is the car stereo. If companies such as ASUS can produce perfectly capable, fluid, and responsive tablets such as the Nexus 7 for only a couple of $100s, why does a basic touchscreen stereo cost over $1,800 as an option in my new car when it is clearly inferior in functionality, build quality, usability, and responsiveness? Why is it taking practically all auto manufacturers so long to catch up?
That is a brilliant question that I've wondered myself. And before I bought my FRS, one of the things that I had contemplated doing was mounting an iPad mini, which actually doesn't fit in the space that the stereo is, but replacing my stereo with just an iPad mini, or not replacing, but covering it up.
Totally.
And I still may. If I get this, if I do keep the Mega, I may work on fitting something that goes around the existing system and doesn't really obstruct anything, so I can quickly pop it in place and take it out, where I can just drop my phone in where the stereo is, because I use my phone for media in the car. Mine has Bluetooth. But yes, I totally understand and agree with you. I have the same question in mind. I don't know if the BRZ comes with the same bespoke stereo, but what I have is it's okay. It works. It does the job. But it has a resistive touchscreen. A resistive touchscreen.
You just use it with your fingernails for fun. Do you ever just bring out a stylus just
yeah,
you can?
I mean, it's just like, why? Like that is so
because it's why. I'll tell you why. Because it's cheaper, and they can make better margins on it if they make it as cheap as possible to produce. And I want to speak to the price question, because I have two answers on this. It costs over $1,800 as an option in a car, when an iPad would cost $500, because the car
it doesn't
industry
have an amp.
Right.
That's one thing.
Right. Well, because the car industry knows that it can get away with it, first of all.
Yes.
Because you're already spending top dollar for this giant expenditure. I mean, you're unloading thousands of dollars. So proportionately speaking, that's not as much. It's like, well, I'm already spending whatever, $50,000. Why not just another $1,800? Sure, I want the system. Second of all, and this is speaking as someone whose girlfriend works in the car industry, and who doesn't drive, because I use public transit, because I live in a city where I can do that. So I have this thing where I don't like the car industry because it is stuck in 1954, at least on the retail side. And I hate that about it. And I kind of loathe the automotive industry a lot. But you can see it in America here, where many of the brands are struggling to survive, and some of them had to get bailed out because, for many reasons, but many of them also just refused to adapt. They were like BlackBerry. They were like these mobile companies that sit there, it's like, everything's fine. What? No, we're not going to change anything. And then their whole world collapsed. What, you mean in the car industry?
Yeah, they all did it at the same time.
Right. So I have very little respect for the modern car industry. I think it was a much more vaunted institution 50 years ago, because it was doing revolutionary, really cool stuff. But it's iterative today. It's boring. It's dull. It's backwards. It's loathsome in a lot of different ways. So that's why they can overcharge for a stereo system, because they can, and because they're jerks. That's what I think.
I mean, there's some different technology going on in there, but car stereos have not really advanced all that much in the better part of 2 decades, or at least a decade. So I totally understand that question. But you are seeing some advancements where, Apple announced you have iOS integration in a car, and in-car systems are advancing, but very, very, very slowly.
Yeah.
I think it's partially because they're not tech companies.
Right.
So, they're outsourcing all these different stereos, which is, the built-in stereo in mine is a Pioneer in the FRS, not mine, but the FRS. I think it's a Pioneer stereo, and it looks like it's straight out of a 1995 Ford truck.
Right. So what's the analog here? It's like when you see a company like, maybe this is a bad example, but Vizio, like a company known for its TVs, making this like one-off Android tablet. It's like, what are you doing? You know this is going to be crap.
Yeah. But why the question is not why auto manufacturers are taking so long to catch up. It's why stereo manufacturers are still building stuff like it's 1999.
Well, that's a very good point. Yeah.
I
also want to. I should actually say something. One of my good friends and my roommate works for another part of the car industry for another brand who I actually respect. So I don't want to kind of demean the entire auto industry. That was unfair of me. But I do think that there's a lot wrong with it, and I think this is one of the things. Now, I don't know, Taylor. Maybe you can clear this up. I don't know if this $1,800 option that Chris cites includes the entire stereo system with like speakers and amps and all that stuff, or if it's just the touchscreen interface.
It depends. Like on mine, the option to upgrade on the lot is like $700. So it's a different price scale in other countries. Okay. I've learned that the FRS is a lot cheaper here in the States than it is in other places. In Malaysia, it's the equivalent of like 70 or 80,000 US dollars. Whereas here it's like it starts at 25,000.
Well, it's like phone costs here. We get people on the live all the time telling. I forgot the gentleman's name, but he's like, "Yeah, in my country, an iPhone costs $1,100." I'm like, "Wow."
Yeah. Well, that difference is like inflation of like 2. This is like an inflation of like 4 or 5. I mean, it's
a good point. Yeah.
Ridiculous, but still, that's a great point. My upgrade option for $800 is a little more justifiable, but it's also still like, why does this cost $800? I had the same question. And you can get better stereos aftermarket for a lot cheaper. Your stock options or your, I don't know what you want to call it, your sales floor options, what are packaged retail with the car, are always going to cost more. So if you go aftermarket and get a stereo, you can get one that's as good, if not better, for $400, $300. But even then, that $400 or $300 is nowhere near the technology you could get in a tablet.
Right.
So the question is, why don't they simply embed tablets in cars at a retail level on like OEMs and
some
have
buses
an amp
are doing
in the
that.
background?
Some buses are doing that. Some airplanes are doing that. I forgot what. Taxi cabs. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Somebody at CES got tired of the the vocal announcements in the back of cabs and like popped out the tablet or something. And it was some cheesy knockoff Android tablet just running video in a loop. That was wired into the cab's stereo. So anyway, so we know that's possible. And Chris, I think we have to close it out, but I do want to thank you for writing in and exposing that that interesting bit of discussion we don't often get to on the show. And Taylor, I'm glad you were here to help field it, because I wouldn't have known what I was talking about. I still don't. As a matter of fact, I'm still completely ignorant when it comes to automobiles. My last car was a 1990 Chrysler LeBaron. So
wow,
yeah,
nice.
I liked it though.
I will say that, Chris, you should totally look into some of the videos on YouTube of people putting tablets as in-dash options.
You should do one of those videos. We should. Pocketnow should have a video. Pocketnow Automotive.
I've actually honestly thought about building my own. I'm a pretty crafty person in my spare time. My dad's an engineer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so a lot of our free time was spent building things. When I grew up, I helped my dad build barns and buildings and electronics and all kinds of stuff. So
you should do it. You should.
Yeah,
this should happen.
I watched my dad build an engraving machine one day. So,
guys,
the sky is the limit.
guys, the Think WebOS, the All About WebOS Daily is out from Think WebOS. Top stories from Captain Two Phones, because I retweeted Adam Dowd's review. That seems kind of unfair.
That's
Sorry. It just hit my Twitter feed. I don't mean to interrupt, but we do have to. One of us has to pee, so we do have to go.
And it's not me.
All right. Well, there you go. Spoiler alert. Chris, thank you for writing in. Actually, everyone, thank you for writing in. We're really glad to be diving back into listener mail a little more frequently now, because these questions are really great. Please do remember to keep them brief if you can in the future, and please continue to forgive me for my brutal mispronunciation of all of your names. Taylor, final thoughts before we junk out?
This podcast was brought to you from the front seat of my Scion FRS.
Is that true?
No.
No, there's way too much echo. I was like, no, that's a big room you're in. I can hear it.
Yeah, it's a big room.
Yes.
There was something I was going to add, but now I can't remember. So
Good. I'm glad.
Have a great weekend. That was not a Cleveland voice, by the way.
That was not. No, it was a different voice.
Not.
And you are not going to be on the live tomorrow, apparently, so I won't see you there. But
will not.
We'll be seeing you on the internet, and we're going to tell you where. But for now, that's going to do it for this episode of The Weekly. Hey, find us on Twitter. Brandon, who was here before, is at Brandon Miniman. Taylor is at CasperTech, CasperTek.
All lowercase.
All lowercase, which doesn't really matter, but you can put it in however you want. And as always, you can find me at Captain Two Phones. Capitalize it however you like. You can also follow Pocketnow officially at Pocketnow on Twitter, as Pocketnow on Facebook and Google+. You can leave us a review on iTunes or Xbox Music, which helps us get discovered and helps us bring you more podcasts. And if you have a topic, question, or a suggestion for the podcast, or you just want to say hello or tell me I'm all wrong about the automotive industry, email us at podcast@pocketnow.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
See you later.
That was such a weak goodbye.
I was reading at the same time.
See you later.
Oh, God. Just
See you
delete that
later,
out.
dudes. I sure will delete it. So I've got about 4 hours of editing to do to take out all that. We're seeing a progression of that, and it's nice. And we're going to talk about UI in the next piece of listener mail here, but I want to thank... damn it, I keep cursing by accident.
Also, we are completely off topic. I don't even know if we answered the question.